How to explain family relationships in Spanish. That is the title of this class, divided into two sessions. And this first session is going to start with kind of personal experience. I would like to tell you. These photos are of a friend of mine and myself. As you can see there, we are seeing a no family tree, 16th century family tree of a Chilean family. And he is a descendant of this family. They're recorded on that family tree at the National Archives in Santiago, the capital city of Chile. And that was the exact moment when we were talking about the surname of this family. And I told him, oh, I have the same, namesake family I come from. And he told me, oh, and me too. I mean, I am not only a descendant of this family, I am also a descendant of your same family. And at that moment, we understood that we were related. I mean, I am so happy when this happens, when a friend of mine becomes a relative. It's like having a newborn baby in your arms, part of your family, and it's a very, very good sensation. And our relation had to be explained some way. And in Spanish, we understood that he's my tío en noveno grado. That means my ninth grade cousin once removed. But in Spanish, it is common to express that relationship using the word uncle. Tío. Uncle means tío in Spanish, and that allows us to understand that he is one generation above me, as he is my uncle, my ninth uncle, one would say. So I think that is an kind of advantage for Spanish speakers, because using common Spanish, I mean, our day-to-day language, it is very easy to identify when telling another a distant relationship, trying to explain it. It is very easy to understand who is above the other, talking on generations. And this class has to be with all those terms, not only in common language, but also in terms of genealogy. So I think this is very, very useful for people who would like to understand better official records, telling us relationships, not in common language, but in a canonical or law language, law terms. And well, here you can see the chart that explains one of our kinships, one of the relationships, family relationships I have with my friend. Well, so what kinships are? Kinships are words, words that explain the relationships, family relationships between two people. So I am going to use the term kinship in this class. In genealogy, it is necessary to manage a standardized vocabulary to explain relationships, because when generating reports, when trying to not only explain relationships, but to understand relationships, not only from others, but through records, as we are going to see in this class, it is necessary to understand all the methods we would use to explain kinships and family relationships. In addition, in the world of Spanish speakers, Catholic Church has a tremendous role, I mean, an important role in the in family connections. When there is a marriage in Catholic Church, the church regulates it um, because there is a canon or a law, the canon number 1091, sorry. That canon regulates marriages between relatives. So you cannot marriage by law an ascendant or descendant of you, but you can marry a collateral relative like a cousin or an aunt or an uncle, and that is totally regulated by Catholic Church, and there are records that are available for us to do our genealogical researches where we can read these relationships explained not in common language as we saw before, but in this canonical language. And there are different types of canonical languages we are going to see in this class to get more from those records. So the parts of this class. So we are going to see what common language is in for explaining relationships, Germanic counting and Latin counting, and both counting systems for family degrees are the ones related to this canonical language we are going to consider. And we are going to see kinds of kinships to go deeper on those, on both Germanic and Latin counting systems. And as I told you before, exercises and a great story related to DNA at the end of the second session. So common language in Spanish, as I told you before, has this component that you can explain distant relationships and understand who is above or before your generation. So as you can see there in this chart, your first-rate cousin, in Spanish we usually can mention them, your first-rate cousins, as simple primo, cousin, as in English. Your cousin is your first-rate cousin. And but there is another term, primo hermano. Primo hermano, primo in Spanish is cousin, and hermano means sibling. In this case, brother, because it could be hermana, that is sister. So primo hermano or prima hermana. This is just a synonym for a first-grade cousin. So it is another way to mention your first-grade cousin, and you say primo hermano. Why hermano or sibling? Because it is he or she, they are the sons or daughters of your of the sister of one of the siblings of your mother or father. That is why it's called primo hermano, or literally translated sibling cousin. That is a term that does not exist or is not used in English, and as far as I know. And when you try to describe, and this is what we are seeing in this new slide, when you want to describe a relative who is not at your same level, so it's not a cousin, it's a cousin with some degrees removed. As I told you before, you can mention if it is an immediate generation before or after you, you can mention them as an uncle or niece or nephew. In this case, you can see a distant relative, a third-grade cousin once removed, at your right, at the right of the chart. In Spanish, that is a tío en segundo grado, literally translated uncle in second grade. How can you explain this? How can you explain a distant relationship. Just taking as a reference the same generation you are sharing with the sons or daughters of your distant relative, in case you are not in the same level. Because if you are in the same level of a distant relative and you want to explain the relationship, you just say that you are cousins because you are in the same level. But what happens with the sons or daughters of this cousin? That is explained in this chart. You just need to consider and take as a reference the generation you share with their sons or daughters. In case they do not have sons or daughters, it does not matter. Just take that generation as a reference, your generation. So simple with this example. You would like to mention your mother's, that is a specific example here, your one of your mother's first grade cousins, who is explained using common language. Who is my mother's first grade cousin for me is my tío en segundo grado, or my third grade cousin once removed. As he is above me, he is my uncle, or if is a female cousin is going to be my aunt in second grade. So you take, in case they have sons or daughters, they are going to be my second grade cousins. So their parents are my second grade uncles or aunts in Spanish. Tío, uncle, or tía, aunt in second grade, en segundo grado. So that is a way on how in Spanish we can use and we can explain distant relationships in common language. And now we are going to go to legal terms, to law. In this case, Catholic Church terms on consanguinity. Consanguinity is the way Catholic Church uses and common law uses to explain relationships between people, between relatives. They are widely used in genealogy because it was a way to count degrees of consanguinity before 1983. This explanation is for Germanic counting. So Germanic counting is one of the ways to count relationships between people in the Catholic Church. There you can see a small chart that explains the relationship between me and a nephew or niece or a sibling. In the case of Germanic counting, this is very important for genealogy because this is a way that relationships are recorded in Catholic Church records before 1983, and that is, I mean, almost all Catholic records available for genealogy and existing were produced before 1983. That is why Germanic counting is something very important to understand, because the sooner or later you're going to face a record explaining a relationship using degrees, and if it is a record before 1983, this is a way to understand it, and it's very, very easy, because every degree is shared by two people, starting with siblings. So siblings, in common language, we say sibling. Siblings are the first grade in Germanic counting. Their sons or daughters are the second grade. So between siblings, they share first grade of in Germanic counting, and between first grade cousins, they are sharing second grade consanguinity using Germanic counting, and so on. 1983, as I mentioned before, is the year when Catholic Church changes the counting system from Germanic, what we already seen, to Latin counting. And Latin counting, in Latin counting, we just count every person as a degree. So every person in Latin counting is a degree. I am a degree, and my sibling is a degree. Everyone has a degree except the parents. So in this case, as you can see there, we have five people. We do not count the parents, so we only three people regard. So number 3 is the final degree we share. In this case, with my sibling is a second degree, second grade in Latin, and with a niece or nephew is a third degree, third grade in Latin counting. This is what Latin counting is, what Catholic Church and common law in many Latin American and Spain, Latin American countries and Spain is used nowadays, the Latin counting. Kinds of kinship. This is going to be our last part. We're going to come back with the second part of this class, second session, to do exercises. So please try to reinforce what we have explained here. We have a straight lines to explain our ascendants or descendants. I would just like to highlight 2 words here, or maybe 2 terms in Spanish. From our 4th grandparents in Spanish, we use ordinal numbers and so on. We don't say that, we use, as I said before, ordinal numbers. 4th grandparents in Spanish is cuartos abuelos. The parents of our 4th grandparents are the 5th grandparents, and so on. That is the standardized many institutions who take care of genealogy use frequently. There are collateral kind of kinships, or pure collateral, or transversal. So transversal and pure collateral are synonyms. Pure because we share the same generation. So when we talk about cousins without times removed, you say pure collateral. As you can see there, pure because they are purely connected in the same generation. You can see a sibling and we are pure collaterals. And mixed collateral or transversal. It's unequal, counting in generations because one is above the other. Here you can see an example with a nephew or a niece. We are mixed collateral. And affinity. Affinity is the synonym for political kinships or political relations. That means brother-in-laws, mothers-in-law, and so on. And we are going to come back with exercise number 1. So please take class number 2. You are going to confirm all the information we have seen during this first session. I invite you to take notes, to go back to rewind this recording and take notes of the kinds of kinships to finally confirm them, your learning in the next session.